Spaceships. Spaceships. Spaceships.
Hey, internet.com. I'm Jason Ward, and today I got the Geek Furious.
It's Geek Radio.
Oh, Geek Radio. He's not furious. He's just a Geek Radio guy today. And old buddy Rob. Daily Rob, as I like to call him.
Yeah. You and the ladies.
You and the ladies, yeah. Yeah, so last night there was a new episode of The Bad Batch where I used this word in the title because I think it's pretentious and I hate it when TV show people want to say penultimate. I just wanted this as an excuse to say penultimate is the most pretentious sounding word for a recap person to ever use. And so I used it just so I could say it sucks. But yeah, so we got the next to last episode of the show. And it was really quickly, I want to say I saw the Green Knight last night, and I love that shit. It was really good for me. I know a lot of people, it wasn't their cup of tea. I thought it was like the best movie I've seen in a very long time. So I go from watching this thing that I felt very personally engaged with I thought a very profound message by the end of the film. And then to watching this, as I told the guys before, I'm like, it was a weird pairing of wine and cheese, and that doesn't mean it's bad. And I don't think the episode was bad either, by the way. But I do think that it was a very, very interesting, like, kind of start of the capstoning of the Clone Wars. It was another kind of boulder on the tomb of the Clone Wars, going like, this is getting shut down. So Rob, as a dude who doesn't really get totally crazy about the animated shows and stuff like that, did that episode, did that resonate with you at all? Like with what it was, or was it just like, okay, like what was your vibe?
No, yeah, I liked it. I mean, I like, again, being able to see their sort of take on Camino, right? And then clever ways of getting around the production, like everyone's evacuated, or we murdered them, like whatever that is.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm like, there's a lot of dramatic effect. There's a lot of quiet shots, like especially when they did like the shot of like all the empty rooms right before they blow it up. Like that's the kind of storytelling I'd like to see more of in the series, right? So far, versus, oh, I'm going to get the robots out. Oh, I got too many out. Oh, now I got to stop the robots. Like, it's like, I get it. I would have liked her plan maybe to be a little bit more smarter. Like, she reprogrammed them and they're helping, or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, watching clones take down robots, it's like, we've seen that. Like, it would have been interesting to see one new take on it. Maybe get that concept art floating, what was it, the little mini slave one that we saw yesterday from the concept art out, and she's like pegging him down or something.
Yeah.
So I still think that one of the things that's kind of missing from the series in general is that when they have a set piece like this thing being blown up, they don't really do a lot of adventure-y, I don't know, like I call it like the roller coaster moment. During a big moment like that, like really, really mining that moment adventure wise for all you could, because it's more of an adventure show than a dramatic series, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, good drama. I don't understand what the big deal is with trying to save. I guess we're doing another save someone who's bad. I believe he's bad, but he's good, but he's really bad. We're doing that again, right? And I'm like, just kill him. Let's leave him there, man. Like, he obviously wants to kill everybody. Fuck it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the big deal is with that, but that's where they're going. So, okay. Whatever.
Yeah. I want to say, by the way, people in chat who watched it, let us know what your thoughts were too. Because
overall, I liked it. I just want it to be clear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. The moment where you see all of the, we see like where the guys used to eat and fight, and we see like, where they were born and all that stuff. We see all of those shots of those rooms as it's being destroyed was super good. It was
super good.
It was powerful moment. My armchair criticism is they should have held off killing the Kaminoan, and because if this was a movie and we had you know, the cloners getting basically killed at that moment, juxtaposed with that moment, juxtaposed with them going, we would have had a real Star Wars 3 to 4 things going at the same time with different levels of emotion happening all at once. And it would have been stellar. At the same time, this is a series, and all of those things do essentially happen in about the same time. So, you know, but in terms of as like an editing thing, I would have much preferred the story to have played out that way. But it was powerful, and it really like I said, capstoned from Attack of the Clones forward in Star Wars and said, this is the end of that era because it doesn't exist anymore.
And they did a good job of like when they would cut from a clone talking to a TK trooper talking, and it's a different voice. It's a female voice or a guy's voice, and they're clearly different people. They're not even the way I don't know how to describe it, but the way they're talking and acting is not like any of the clones. You know?
Yeah. It's like you almost get cognitive dissonance from it when you hear D. Bradley Baker doing the clone accent or the New Zealand accent. And then all of a sudden, you have like an American woman going, "Sir, this doesn't make sense." And you're like, "Whoa, this does feel different, and it looks different."
I do wish they were all wearing the Macquarie armor, because I was a little confused when they're wearing the trooperish armor, right? Like, I was like, is it? I mean, I wish they would just have, you know, it's a little simplistic, but because it's a cartoon and we don't have, you know, textures can all look the same. I don't know how to describe that, right?
Yeah.
So I wish they would have just been TK troopers look like the little Macquarie samurai-ish helmets, and the clone troopers look like the ones that we're familiar with from the movies, you know?
I kind of had a moment last night when we saw them together, when we saw the clones and the TKs together, where there's aspects of the Revenge of the Sith clone armor looks more like a stormtrooper than the TK armor. And that was kind of weird. It kind of felt like a rollback in the design progression in a weird way. And I think it would have, if we just didn't see those costumes that much anymore, we would have just bought it. We would have been like, or I would have bought it. I would have been like, that's fine. But because you have those things together, it does play out differently. And I guess in the new design philosophy, we'll get the vibe that, yeah, okay, they're trying to make them more powerful and more like the clones in a way. They are progressing back to where they were. But yeah, I don't know. I like it though. I do like how it looks, because I think they look stupid, but they look stupid in a good way. You know what I mean? They look like
the lighting was good too, especially like the front end and the back end of the episode. Like, a lot of it's really good, but like when they first arrive on Kamino, and the shot in the hangars is lit really well when they're outside, and Omega's being lit by just one light from underneath to the left, like, you know, and it's that little orangish yellowish light on the rails or whatever. The rails.
Yeah.
So like the lighting was really great.
Rails in Star Wars?
Look, Doug Chang says there are none, but you know, I noticed there are small little guards, just enough for you to trip, poosh, into the water. So I thought it would have been interesting. I mean, it's only we got another episode left. It's the penultimate episode. But missed opportunity if they don't use it to bring back the whales. Like they get on a whale.
Did we see? I thought we saw the little baby ones swimming in the water.
Yeah, in the water.
Yeah, the little tiny baby ones. Maybe
caught with the Force.
Yeah, maybe at the end they'll get on one, and that's how they'll get out of there. I don't know. but one thing I think is, just as a production thing, nice that when Omega was in the rain, she had wet hair, because that's one of the things. But
they did a good job with that, even though it's still chunky. It's like Sonic, you know, that's like if Sonic the Hedgehog, the game version, got wet, it would be like,
yeah. But I was glad that they didn't just overlook it entirely. Like I will take that amount of effort over just going like, oh, it's a cartoon, their hair doesn't actually get wet, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, because we can't do it. I mean, at least they have the tech now to do a lot more. Now, do you guys know, because, you know, I don't pay attention to the animation side as much as the live action. Yeah. Is this the art style they're going to be going with future shows, or is this just for Bad Batch?
Yeah, it's basically the last season of the Clone Wars. that they put out dropped a lot of the Thunderbirds Are Go wooden painted design look, and they kind of converted the show and dropped that and then scaled that forward. So Clone Wars final season and this share the same aesthetic design, so that it kind of evolves into it. And I would have to think that they must have some kind of production idea where we could save a lot of money and a lot of costs by rolling over stuff and reusing stuff that fits fits into what we've already done before. So if this show just tanks out, then maybe that'll be the end of it. But I would imagine if season 2 performs, I think we're going to see this design going forward, because there's just so much to pull from.
But also, whenever they introduce a new set, sorry, Rob, whenever they introduce a new set, you know they're going to reuse it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they don't just design a new set and then never use it again. So, like this episode kind of suggests there's going to be a change, at least. That.
And most of the sets that we see in this show, like the Camino stuff, that was all designed for Clone Wars.
So like, it's the same design. They just put a new paint job on it.
I would even say the environments are practically the same. It was mostly like the character models that had.
It's like the time I put the Tantive 4 in a Jedi. Man, we pulled it out of storage, just rolled it in there. It's the 6, it's the 2, it's the 9. Fabuloso.
I still laugh all the time though. When you know how I'm always telling Rob, like, Rob, you got to see this arc of the Clone Wars. You should really see this arc. I just do the same thing to my son. My son likes everything, but he just has the focus of a 7-year-old, so he won't watch a whole series. He'll go to watch it. Yeah, he'll go to watch it. And he'll be like, "Oh, Savage Opress. I'm gonna watch that," and skip 15 episodes before.
Yeah.
And so I'm always telling him like what he has to watch, or you should check this out. And so sometimes he'll listen. And then it'll be like one of the earlier ones where it's Super Thunderbirds. And I just look at it and I just laugh to myself that George Lucas is like, "Oh, these people keep saying I have wooden actors, huh? Wait till I make them fucking wooden puppets." Oh, it's so funny though, because that's where his head was. Like it would be, he would have to be so there would have to be no self-awareness by George Lucas for it not to have gone that way.
And he doesn't seem the type. I think he's very aware, and that is why he directed 2 prequel episodes after he did The Phantom Menace, because he was so aware of what people thought. He was like, "Oh yeah?"
Unless that Pepsi thing played out and he's like, "I'll take that money."
Oh, well, I mean, that probably happened, but
I was actually gonna ask
the
you.
Taste of the new generation.
He's all, "Here's the Pepsi challenge, pay me." Do you remember that story at all?
Yeah.
Of the Pepsi money thing?
Yeah.
Because I know you've been following Star Wars online forever, and I was just like, yeah.
No, that definitely. I mean, at least I've heard you talk about it or write about it. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely. I'm pretty confident that is a thing. And there were a lot of things tied to, like, Jar Jar was supposed to be a much bigger deal, not just in the scripts, because obviously we know that, but he was supposed to be a much bigger creature for promotional purposes for the future.
Yeah.
And so they had a lot of things that were going to be tied up. But I think if the response to The Phantom Menace had been better, I think Attack of the Clones wouldn't have been as dark as it was.
Yeah.
And probably not as romantic.
Right.
And I think they were going to go for more Jar Jar. And so a lot of stuff would have tied in really well with more Jar Jar.
Yeah.
It was originally called Jar Jar's Big Adventure. So that's the one Pepsi shot down because the merch tanked.
Yeah.
I wonder if those people were, I wonder if like the licensees were pissed about that when that came out, because that was the script that they got too. That was the one that one leaked because it was.
Did you guys ever get punked by an April Fool's joke? Because the only one that I've ever been successfully
not me.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, the one that got me was that story that went around that Jar Jar merch fell on a guy and killed him. It's like, yeah, all this and the reason why though was because I've told Jason before, I used to work at this store called Playco, which was big in California. It's in they got one in what's that what's that Schwarzenegger movie with Jake Lloyd?
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle all the way.
Yeah, so they go to a Placo. That's the store, and they had their warehouse in San Marcos, and that's where we would do like inventory. And so I went up there a couple times to go do inventory. And what would happen is I went there once, and they would have these return Spawn toys just stacked all the way up, wrapped in cellophane,
Right?
like to the top of the wrappers. And I remember going in there going like, oh, this could kill us. I could die by Spawn figures, like if this fell on me. So when I read that story, I'm like, was it a Placo? Like, cause I could totally believe that wouldn't monitor properly, or there was an earthquake or whatever, and it just came right down on someone.
You know, we probably shouldn't joke about this because somebody in the chat may one day die from a bunch of Jar Jars.
Yeah. And then they'll blame it on us. They'll be like, you did it. But by the way,
You're an enabler.
I do have to say, in defense of Jar Jar, I have introduced Star Wars to a number of people over the years, and not once has someone said to me they hated Jar Jar. And in fact, there's been more like, I love this character stuff, and disappointment that he isn't in more of Attack of the Clones. And I find that so interesting because, you know, I'm old enough to remember when Empire came out and the reaction to that, and the reinvention of reality that people have made about how much that movie was loved, because it wasn't. And I feel like, you know, it's unfortunate that Jar Jar came out in the internet age, because people haven't allowed that to grow, that actual love for that character. And people like us have determined he's not likable, and therefore we rule the internet and we get to set, you know, the agenda for that. I actually think, like I said, I've never seen someone react badly to that character outside of 1999 to 2005.
Yeah, my son, I think everybody thinks I'm going to say my son loves Jar Jar. My son was fine with Jar Jar, and then he started watching video game streamers, watching Star Wars people play video games, and then he picked it up on the streets. And I was like, what, my son, a Jar Jar hater in my house?
Terrible.
It's true, though.
It's the legacy of Harry Knowles and Ain't It Cool News. Honestly, it's what we're dealing with. You know, like, and I got to remember how important. When I say important, I mean how loud that Ain't It Cool News was, like the Twitter. You know, it's like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram all combined, TikTok, into one spot for a period of moment where, if you know, they came out and said, Misa, I mean, remember he even tweeted Misa like it when he first did his review, and everyone was like, "Oh, we couldn't hit you," and then all the trolls went out. We can't. Harry sold out. Blah 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 blah. And so it's one of those things where if the talkbacks on Ain't It Cool News didn't like something, that's the way it stood. I mean, the biggest example I've seen of this was, remember, JJ did a treatment for Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And Drew McWeeny, who was Moriarty at the time, reviewed it and took a big dump on the script, because there was this twist where you find out Lex Luthor, who's an FBI agent, X-Files-ish dude in the script, is actually a Kryptonian, and so him and Superman fight at the end, and they couldn't get past. Like, this is not my Superman, blah, 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 blah. And it didn't directly cancel the film, but it helped. You know, I guarantee. I know everyone says, well, it's because McGee didn't want to fly to Australia or whatever. That's a part of it, but that feedback did not go well internally. Yeah. To the point when Superman Returns comes out, McWeeney's review was, "Wish I never got involved." You know, I wish I never said nothing. So I think the best critique of the Jar Jar stuff is just the way he speaks is, you know, someone could have just said, doesn't have to be, you know, Misa. It's not, you know, that's not the best dialect, you know, but like the character in general, I mean, I didn't see anyone outright hating it other than older guys who were like, it's not my thing. Yeah. You know, like that's it.
And it's usually older guys who get to decide. For some reason, why do we empower old people so much? Because when we were kids, we didn't think anything old people thought was cool. For 30 years, I didn't listen to the Beatles because old people liked it. Mind you, Beatles had broken up like 5 years after, like, I was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
So to understand music, and I was like, that's old people music. So somehow the internet allowed old people to dictate what young people like. That's stupid.
we did kind of hit a point where everything just became like, I like this, like it did change. It was like we were teenagers, you were like, oh, this music is my music and that music is my parents' music.
Yeah.
And today kids have just realized, oh, we could just take anything that we want from everywhere.
Yep.
You know, there's kids listening to like classical music and punk rock and
that's awesome.
Yeah, you know, it is ultimately probably for the better, but it also in a weird way decentralizes like a shared, like Prince, Madonna.
Yep.
Won't get that again. Probably not anyway. And
the most modern version
close, but yeah.
But Jason, the most modern version that would have been the reaction to dubstep when it came out, right?
Right.
Like my friend said, it sounds like a robot being the R word, right?
Yeah.
Being sexually assaulted, right?
Right.
To him. But then it goes away, and then someone does like a heavy metal guitar version of Bangarang, and everyone's like, oh wow, if you take that dubs and you play it with instruments, it actually works. So it's for them, right? So I just find it's quickly how like there's an immediate reaction against something new. I don't want it. I don't get it. And then after a while, people find a way into something. Oh, actually, I like that version
Disco.
of it. Or if they, or like how many Michael Jackson songs that people don't care for, but you hear like jazz renditions now, or like instrumental like 20s versions on YouTube. These playlists of different like
or
lo-fi,
Metallica's
right?
Black Album, which was like destroyed in 1991 by the real fans. And now they're making a Black Album cover album where like tons of bands are covering those songs. And you're like, who would have seen that coming in 1991?
What's funny is that that's
St.
the
Vincent
album.
cover. So good, by the way.
Yeah.
The St. Vincent
Yeah, the
version.
Black Album's the one that got me to like Metallica. Like, it's so weird. I'm like, oh, I like this. This is my thing, you know? And then I was like not into it before. So
that's when I got into them. In 1991, I went back and bought all their other albums. And now, the 80s stuff is my favorite. But still, I would never have been into Metallica if not for that. So, and I think The Force Awakens is that for a lot of kids. Is like they would never have, they weren't interested in Star Wars. Then Force Awakens comes out and it's like, you know, it's JJ's greatest hits of Star Wars, and that works. And sometimes you need a Black Album restart of a franchise. I was hoping Suicide Squad would be that.
I wonder though, like if The Force Awakens, let's say The Force Awakens had featured Ahsoka, you know what I mean, and the clone stuff, like if it had I know guys, it wouldn't make any sense. I get it. Let's just say they were like, we got a group of people we've been grooming. It's not a good word. Setting up, whatever, you know, feeding this content to, right? There we go. We've been feeding this content to them for 10 years. And now they'll be able to see these characters in live action, you know, is that the way to go? You know,
apparently, because it's working really well. But by the way, internally, they call that seeding.
Seeding.
Yeah.
It still sounds.
They still say, I think actually they still call it seeding. They just don't say it out loud because they know how that sounds.
Dell says, I love the episode. I think I was more worried about being wrong on Star Wars Santa's predictions than I should have been, which took away from my enjoyment of the show. Yeah. Yeah. When I did one of Santa's predictions, little things there on the Star Wars Santa show, got every single one wrong. But,
they call it the Last Jedi effect. It's when you think you know what's happening, when you go in and you're wrong about everything, you're like, I hate that.
I call that the Matrix Reloaded effect.
Or
No,
what
I find interesting is how a lot of people will go into a theater, and as they're sitting there, like the Last Jedi is, I think, the best example of that. They start writing the tweet in their head that's going to get them likes and validation, and they're going to feel like they're smart and people like them and that they have funny things to say and they are a pillar of the internet community. And then they don't watch the rest of the fucking movie.
I've never even thought of it that way, Jason.
They're literally,
Jason,
like,
I've done this.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm outing myself. I've literally, I've sat down and been like, I know what this movie is going to be. I'm pre-writing the tweet before I've even watched it. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, that's not what I already sent it.
Yeah. No, we've all done it. I'm not saying I'm above it
I
either, but
Rob
I
says he
think
hasn't.
I
Rob
don't even
hasn't.
understand this concept. Like seriously, no, I
Yeah.
don't. Guys, look at my tweets are pictures of my art as I work on it. So I don't fully understand this. I mean, I've been on Twitter since the beginning, but I don't understand this idea of going into a theater and having something ready to say on the internet about it. Like
Well,
that's
no.
a thing.
No,
Like,
no.
no,
It's
no.
more complex than that.
No, like for instance, when you start The Last Jedi and Luke is a quitty little whiner bitch who needs to get off his fucking ass and go be Luke Skywalker. Well, now your whole Twitter personality against Star Wars, if that's your thing, is Luke Skywalker's a quitter little bitch who won't get off his ass and save the galaxy. But at the end of the movie, he does it. At the end of the movie,
totally opposite
we get
of what
there.
they say.
Yeah, and it's because they made up their mind and made up their tweet before they watched the whole movie, and so it's not before they've even stepped in the theater.
So
it's
weird.
It's while they are like, I have a critique, therefore all critiques are valid, and that's where it gets, it's bullshit.
And if you want to use an artist, like a drawer. I don't know what to call an artist.
The ones who holds the socks and shirts, yes.
Yeah, when you start out drawing your figure, it's like a stick figure. It's not exactly a stick figure, but it's lines to kind of like guide you where you're going to draw the rest of the thing. And if so, you started with that and somebody saw that and they were like, I know what this is. This is not what I wanted. And then you fill out the rest of it and they look at it and they don't care what you finished with. They only care what they saw in the beginning. And that happens all the time. And I think it's because people are very myopic. So they go, where you start, you have to finish. That is the problem with what Rian Johnson did. He was like, I'm going to subvert your expectations by showing you what I'm going to do. In fact, if you just pay attention to the first half of the movie, he tells you exactly what's going to happen. But people had decided, well, he's not going to deliver that. He's going to deliver this because that's what everyone does. And he subverted your expectations by telling you what he was going to do. And people didn't understand what he was doing at the time. And I think that kind of storytelling, you saw the same thing in Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. It comes down to, did I like the way you did it versus did I like that you tricked me? I don't think people were as upset about being tricked. I think they just didn't like the way it was done. I think they're that simple. And I think your point about Luke's early start set that agenda, and it didn't really matter how it ended. If he wasn't cool from the start, he is not cool, period, done.
Yeah. And that is the power of these cartoons, is that if there's none of that baggage with it. That is the one thing I will say, that it, like, where every single week, like when a new movie comes out, I always go, I'm so excited. I am not looking forward to the future internet. And then but on the flip side of it, these like little cartoon shows, like, for the most part, the only thing that happens is it might get called a filler episode. And usually that, what series doesn't have those, though? So I got
2 points to make based off what Geek said.
Sorry.
One, you said what you start, where you start is not where you finish. We call that iteration, right? So we iterate in design, where here's an idea, and we'll take several of those things, and then through iteration, it will become this final product. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing rarely ever goes from that's the sketch, that's the final. You can see this clearly in Star Wars with the Clone Wars. If you watch the theatrical release of the first film, compared to how the series ended, it's a vast difference. Like they iterated over time. I think to piggyback off that, though, the reason why they can get away with it in a cartoon series and not a movie is marketing. You're not spending $100 million to market each episode of a cartoon series. And if you look at Solo, the marketing for Solo, which was underplayed, right, as opposed to the marketing for The Last Jedi, you see you see two different. There's a reason why, maybe multiple reasons why maybe a lot of people didn't go see Solo for whatever reason.
Denny's, right? Denny's.
But I do love their pancakes; they're so soft. But people did feel like going into the film, I still don't know what this is. What is this film? We didn't see
Yep.
anything. And a lot of times you hear people say, I wish they wouldn't show us anything. They would just drop the movie.
Yeah.
And then every now and then a movie comes out with no marketing. Like everyone now, the big internet thing is, where's the Spider-Man trailer? You gotta have it. I don't know. Like, you know, but how many times have we said, I wish they would just drop the film and we wouldn't know what was in it. But when they do that, then they're like, they didn't market it properly. So I don't know what, you know, there's probably, when you have to spend $100 million or no money, there's probably like anywhere in between, it's a net effect, right? Like you can't guarantee the result. And as marketing departments know, they want to know what they're going to get back for their money. They don't want to wonder.
Yep. And the studio too, like the studio heads also, they don't want, like they hate surprises. Like that's their biggest thing, is that's why they have a list of people they will hire for any movie. You know, that what's his face who has that night
J.J. Abrams
show? No. He has a late show on CBS. What is his name? He's British. He's now in every musical because he's on a list.
James Corbin?
Yeah, James Corden or whatever his name is.
Corbin.
He's on a list, and that's why he is brought into every one of those movies now, because the studio heads are like, I don't want to be surprised, so let's just bring him in. People like him. And it's the same thing.
When I was a kid, that was Alf and Pee Wee Herman. Right? Like you could just guarantee you were probably
they were rad. They were great.
they were awesome.
Now for my dad, he was like, oh, the fucking puppet. You know, why is Johnny Carson the puppet for the whole night?
your dad just like cats. That's all.
Yeah, which is also
he disliked cats. Actually,
didn't like cats. So Moki, don't listen to that. That's my cat. But the point being, Star Wars, when they make a movie like The Force Awakens, whatever, they're not using a lot of stars in that, so they got to market it somehow easily. Well, Solo decided to go with all new actors. The fact that they didn't do the predictable over promotion or tell you the whole movie before you see is amazing, and also goes to show that is a failure. They know how it fails, and yet they were so overconfident. They went into that movie going like, we don't need to market it. It says Star Wars on it. It'll still make money. And clearly, no, that's not how that works. So I think the future of Star Wars marketing for the movies is going to be tell you everything, and for Disney Plus shows, tell you barely anything.
Yeah,
because they can get away with that.
Yeah, with Disney Plus, they need to say, "Hey, it's out. You want to subscribe for
exactly
a little amount of money? Subscribe right now, and you could go watch it."
Yeah,
but I also think when they were doing the Han Solo promotion, they were exhausted, and somebody was just like, put Pop Rocks on pancakes and let Denny's handle it.
Give it to the ward.
What's amazing though is the same team that worked on the Marvel stuff worked on that.
Yeah.
So what the hell happened in that they were like, hey, we got Star Wars property. We've marketed Marvel amazingly. Let's go not market this thing.
I was at D23 right after The Force Awakens, or right before The Force Awakens was going to come out, and they were talking to me, you know, like, stop doing what you do. And ended up hanging out with I was supposed to meet with them. They didn't show, and instead the Marvel people did, who were handling a lot of it. Yeah. And it was interesting because the Marvel people were pretty open, and they were just like, so we think we're going to call it Rogue One, a Star Wars story. That's what we think. I think we agreed on that. They're like they're just like kind of like didn't know, you know. And it was like, and I was like, well, whose choice is that in the end? They're all that one's kind of mostly ours, but I think we agreed on it. Was really really weird.
Kind of mostly.
And then later on that day it comes out, and I don't know if that was a way of like telling me without telling me, you know, because it was like an hour, 3-4 hours before it came out.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, it was really weird, but they just kept going like, well, we do this with Marvel and it works, so it's probably gonna work with Star Wars. So it seemed like they were just like, let's see how similar Marvel and Star Wars are. And I have a feeling that last Fates of Star Wars movie was figuring out exactly where the commonalities are and are not. Mm-hmm. And I think Solo, they learned a big one. They pushed that one over onto onto Iger. Iger supposedly owns that one. Publicly, he said that, but I do think it was
The
my
May
guess.
release.
My guess it was confidence induced by past Marvel things, and
Yeah.
the big difference is like, you know, when you go and you put out a Spider-Man movie, or probably not the best character to choose because of the Sony thing, but you put out some superhero character, Ant-Man. These are all characters that have, whether they're big or small, exist as a comic onto itself with its own dedicated fan base, and it could spiral from there. Whereas Star Wars, it's kind of very shared.
And also, Marvel has a very forgiving fan base, especially the cinematic universe stuff, and where Star Wars doesn't. So I think maybe these Marvel marketing people just didn't get it yet. Yeah. They hadn't figured out, like, even though The Last Jedi had just come out and they saw what happened with that, I just don't think that they're that involved in it. And you find that with the people who work even for the company, even for Lucasfilm, is they're told very early on, like, just don't go on social media. Like, just stay away from it because it's not going to be pretty. And so they end up living in a bubble where they're like, hey, this is like leading up to The Rise of Skywalker. All you heard, if you knew anyone who worked at that company, was this movie is amazing. Like, I didn't hear anyone. Okay, let's just stop talking.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, for instance, I do not agree with the Fandom Menace's philosophy or outlook on that stuff at all. But at the same time, grift aside, they should be looking at what legitimately isn't working for that type of dude, because they are ultimately selling stuff and meaning to make everyone happy, right? So, and once again, I'm not insinuating that if they go and cater a Star Wars movie to the Fandom Menace or anything like that, weirdos. I'm saying that they will oftentimes stay off the internet, live in that bubble, or they will follow a very select small group of gushers and then allow that to sort of say what everybody wants in a Star Wars animated
series.
Actually
bring up a really good point, which I don't think enough people talk about, and may be the most important point for people like, those in the Fandom Menace, is you drive Lucasfilm people who are influencers within that company away from your point of view when you attack them. Yeah. If you want, and the same thing, I tell the Raylos the same thing. If you want more of that story, I said from day one, there is no way that Ben isn't coming back. If you want more of that story sooner, just tell them you want more of that story sooner. Don't call them names. Don't attack them, because then you start losing allies. Yeah. And these are just human beings. You want something, just tell them you like it, and then prove it.
Could be lizard people.
Well, that's always, yes, that is true.
Some people
but that's tomorrow's show.
Trandoshans.
That's tomorrow's show.
Trandoshans. Possible.
Yeah, no, it totally comes down to.
Hold on, I want a Trandoshan shape changer show called Who's the Boss?
Who's the boss?
Right? You got to go picture, son.
Yeah. Okay. Check it out. Palpatine he's a rich man on Coruscant, right? And
hold on, I'm writing this down.
He adopts 2 small clones.
This is better than The Rise of Skywalker.
And they used to be his maid's kids, and it's called Different Snokes.
Wait a minute, isn't this Trevorrow's script?
Different Snokes? That's good. Come on, guys.
This is Trevorrow's script almost. Didn't that end in like them fighting in somebody's room? Like,
I thought you were gonna say it's called Growing Strands. You know what I mean? Like,
the artist speaks.
I actually got that wrong, because I saw all of the scripts that weren't made all pretty much at the same time. And that was the one. I can't remember the guy's name. I believe he's a British writer, and he was brought in to try at one point and rewrite the Trevorrow script, or to rewrite that script, hopefully in a way that Trevorrow could make it. And I don't think Trevorrow was interested in that whatsoever. And in that version, it turns out that Rey was the daughter of the maid, and
Yeah.
he did know her, and then they have a fight in the Solo family manor, if you will. And that was like where that happened. And then Trevorrow was like, that wasn't my script. And then and I was like, oh, okay, yours was the other one. Sorry. But
and you never responded to that one, right?
No.
When you said that, because that it was, and it was just. I know some people love it, but I really find that worse than The Rise of Skywalker. That script, there's great parts in it, but there are great parts in The Rise of Skywalker too. So
swear to God, brother, swear to God, read the first and the second draft. The first draft is out. The next draft does not get better. that is I think the most important. I hope that second draft leaks, so that way people who do like truly care and aren't just like, whatever, like you talk about it a lot in the chat, like whatever wasn't made is the best thing ever, kind of that kind of like idea.
The platonic perfection of the unrealized idea.
This guy.
George R. R. Martin says that a lot. He often says like, the thing that you didn't see that never got made is somehow better because you never got to see it ruined.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I did get to see that story ruined as it and like I had I know people who know people who know people who know people, and I was told that a lot of the stuff in there was just like they would have an idea, and maybe one day Trevorrow can confirm this or talk about it, I don't know, but it was like, what's a Star Wars afterlife like what is there a place like that? We have this idea, and then they're like, well, there's this Mortis story in the Clone Wars. Okay, there it is. Word replace afterlife realm is now Mortis, and the people are like, oh my God, Mortis was in it. And it's like, you don't know what that was gonna.
But even JJ out. Is introduced. I mean, this is complete conjecture, obviously, but I feel like that was the point of The Rise of Skywalker. This is a platform to another movie. I think that's why they wanted to make a 10 instead of, I mean, at one point they discussed it and they were like, well, we can't do that. Well, obviously you can do whatever you want, but they felt like they had to be stuck in this trilogy thing. Yeah. And I think that's why the future either is going to be Disney Plus or a Finn movie, or they're going to do something with probably Finn, just because I feel like it's easier to do a Finn movie where you bring characters in as opposed to focusing on Rey, because Rey is like, she's probably going to either be the master. I know that Rob feels like maybe that's a little bit boring to that, and that she would. No, I'm saying the Academy angle of it. You don't like the Academy angle. You said that in a previous episode when I mentioned it.
The Jedi Academy. I think you're talking about the Awards Academy.
No. I think Rob was saying he doesn't like the idea of it being an academy as opposed to like a Jedi temple. Is that right?
I thought he was saying he didn't like it as an order.
Her. No, I said I don't see her. Being that she took the name Skywalker, I don't see her forming a temple and grabbing kids and putting them in someplace. I could see Finn maybe doing something more traditional, something more orderly. I could see her being more like a Ronin, where you have no master. You go from planet to planet where the will of the Force takes you, and you help people, or you bring on followers. Maybe she has like a lone wolf, a cub thing or something. But I don't see her putting on the robe, building a big freaking temple behind her, and starting a little academy. I don't see. Look, they could do it.
Running. She has a big beard, like Forrest Gump.
She's so independent. I don't see her. She's always leaving people and going her own way. She buries the sabers. It's not like she took those sabers and was like, "Now this is going to be the new temple." Like it's not. She didn't do that. So I
think it's a little complex though, and I think if they make a movie, that's exactly what she would do. But I think if it's a Disney Plus show, you could definitely do what you're talking about. I think the problem is you have to simplify it when you make a movie. Now the great thing is, they're not going to get stuck in the trilogy thing. You have to do it in 2 hours.
No, you
don't. You can't have a Ronin. What is the Ronin story in a movie?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not whiteboarding it right now, dude. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like I'm just telling you, like there are complicated films, and Lucas has made complicated. I mean, really, the Attack of the Clones has a lot of complicated things going on when you write it down on paper. So the execution can look simplistic, but you're like, okay, you got a mystery of someone trying to murder the queen. You got another mystery of a clone army being formed by some hidden thing that's going on. You have another the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then you have the separatists and all these Confederate allies being manipulated by the Sith. There's a lot of complex stuff there.
And Death Sticks.
The Last Jedi is complex in a lot of ways too, and then simplistic. So I think things come off simplistic when you just view them. I don't know. It doesn't have to be simplistic when it's a movie. I know what you mean. Like, don't add a ton of detail. I just think any idea is possible if the right person has the vision for it. And does Disney have the vision for going back to that story of starting Rey as an academy? Not for at least 10 years, 5 years maybe.
When I say simplify, I mean, like, if you look at Solo is actually kind of like, there's a lot happening in that movie early on, and then there's a lot of like story elements, right? So you're dealing with character a lot. So I think you could definitely do like a Ronin story for Rey. I think that would be really interesting. I just think that to do that justice, to do it in a 2-hour movie, a Star Wars movie where people expect things to not be as complex as like a Disney Plus show could be, you can even look at what they did with Loki. I think Loki is a really interesting example of what you could do with Star Wars. Like, it doesn't have to be that good, or even WandaVision, where I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier was could have fit easily as a movie. I don't think you could do like, at least the way that Loki and WandaVision were delivered, I don't think those things will work as a movie. So I think you just have more time, and that's like the Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch right now. You can have these like slow burn episodes where very little happens and few fans complain that, it was a filler episode. You can't have a filler episode as a movie. And some people, I think that Solo is a filler episode as a movie, which I disagree, because I think it's a really good story for the characters.
But I think that's a sequence-driven script, though. Like, I mean, if you want to get a good breakdown on that, again, I've constantly pimped it. I should get paid for it. But the Writers Blockbusters Thundergrunts podcast, they covered the Solo film when it came out. Mm-hmm. That's it's a screenwriter, screen consultant, and another guy, and they go through that the two Kasdan's script and how it's sequence-driven and how it keeps going. You don't really know when it ends. And normally after things like the Kessel Run, that's when a movie would end, and it keeps going and going. So it is actually more complex, and it's more complex in an Indiana Jones way than a Star Wars way. So, you can do a lot of different things. They're going to make what they're going to make when they get the people who pitch the thing that they want to make. I know that sounds stupid, but Favreau comes and says, I got an idea for a Mandalorian thing, and that's how things get made. They don't stop with Kathleen sitting in a room going, all right, let's do this, and then we're going to do that, and we're going to draw a straight through line, and that's not how things get made. Like, they need the confidence. You know what I mean? They have to have that person they feel has the moxie to see it through responsibly.
Like Rian Johnson.
Notes. And that's where I'm like, look, if Rian Johnson wanted to do a Ronin-style Rey Skywalker film, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Where it's skywalking.
But you need somebody with thick skin like Rian Johnson. You cannot, like, bring that guy down. Like, he was taking that incoming all day long for months, for a year, if not more. And he just, like, took it. Whereas some people would just fold under that. Star Wars needs somebody like, and maybe that's upcoming directors. I don't know. But I think you need somebody like Rian Johnson making movies, even if you hate him. Even if I didn't like the next thing Rian Johnson made, I would love the fact that he made it, because he doesn't care. He doesn't care what you think.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You do need someone with that kind of resolve and thick skin to deal with this kind of stuff. And not to say that JJ isn't that, but
he is.
But I do feel like he's savvy enough to have been afraid of certain things and to have made certain choices that were less than brave, in my
He doesn't commit to decisions. J.J. Abrams has consistently not committed to, and I've been a big J.J. fan since, again, that Superman script. I was like, that's the movie I want to see,
I love his work too. I do.
So,
but I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, and I still love, Star Trek. I'm the guy who likes Super 8, so you know what I mean? Sue me.
Hey, I like it until the final 10 minutes. I mean, I think it's a really good movie.
I like lens flares. I do.
I do. I look, anyone who doesn't like lens flares in Star Wars needs to like not pay attention to John Nolan.
I don't even understand that complaint.
Like, and then meanwhile, here's lens flare shot in Phantom Menace, lens flare shot in Phantom Menace, lens flare shot, whatever.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't commit to ideas. He likes to that loosey goosey. Well, you saw what maybe you saw, and maybe you didn't. And we've had that discussion before, Jason, where like, I think Rian Johnson comes from that Vince Gilligan kind of style of storytelling where you write yourself into a corner and then you do the work and write yourself back out, And that's what they consistently did. If you ever listen to the podcast, the Breaking Bad Insider podcast, or whatever, they official podcast they do with Vince Gilligan and the editors, Kelly, and then they bring in each person on an episode. And they went through the entire series from season 2 through, and then Better Call Saul. A lot of times they're like, Vince is like, we had no idea what we're going to do after this. That's why we went to work, and had to work our way out. Like that whole sequence in the last season of Breaking Bad, when you see Walter White with the Rambo gun, he's like, we had no idea when we wrote that, like where we were going with it.
Yeah.
I just know like that's the guy who, if he grew up in the, a guy from the 80s would have got give me the Rambo gun.
Let me ask you guys this. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was
just saying, I just don't see JJ doing that, like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, based off of the conversation that we were just having, I was thinking about how Ray's had her trilogy when you get down to it. Like when they do something, I feel like a lot with her again, I feel like in a lot of ways she can be like, for instance, in the Finn story, she won't be the A story. She'll be the B story doing. Right. And like, for instance, if it's about Finn starting the Jedi Order, then you do have Rey out there as the Ronin. Rey's not here to help me. I have to do this thing because this is my story now.
And that was actually what I was trying to say earlier. I was basically saying that's why you do a Finn story, because that's how you can tell like a completely different perspective of the journey of a Jedi, because we've just seen the journey of a Jedi in Rey. So what is the point of doing it yet again with her new journey as a Jedi? Also, if she's in a leadership position, how many leaders do you really want to? I mean, unless it's like the Wolf of Wall Street or something.
Scorsese, Star Wars.
Yeah. So, but let's pretend like they do go and they're like, you know what? We want to bring Adam Driver back. We want to bring Ben Solo back. We're going to do that story. We're going to make the story where the Jedi are coming back and the life after death.
Does Adam Driver get spider legs?
Well, can you bring Ben back? Like let's just pretend they do something hyper mystical and they do bring Ben back. Can they bring him back with all of the knowledge of like what he did and stuff? Because that's like the whole, you run into this place where, and we were talking about this before episode 9 even came out. It's like it's not real. A billion people didn't really die when Starkiller Base blew that shit up. At the same time, it is a problem that in the story he does do those horrible things,
right?
And like so, if you bring Ben back, does he not remember everything? You know what I mean? Like how would you play that and make it work? That's one of the things that goes through my head. Strand Solo, yeah.
Well, that's you know what? I've just gotten into the whole Strand thing. Okay, so anyway, I said this at the end of The Force Awakens. I said the way you I actually wrote an article about why Ben Solo or Kylo could be redeemed. Mm-hmm. I said, if he then goes on a journey of like paying back what he did, like trying to redeem himself as opposed to being redeemed with one act like his grandfather was. Mm-hmm. And that's not the decision they went with. But I think if there's a way for him to do some good still in wherever he is right now, and whatever way you bring him back in a way that he doesn't want to get into the action. Maybe he is more like Luke, but in another realm. Maybe he's in the midichlorian realm or something. I know that Luke has talked about going there. I don't think he meant that literally, but maybe you could do something weird. Maybe you could do it with animation and then bring him out of that later on into live action somehow. I think you would have to use Disney Plus again for something like that. But I think if he wants to redeem himself in the natural world and he makes an effort to do so, I think that's the way you like you have to forgive people eventually. And I think that it's a good way of getting that message across to children is that no matter what you've done, you can be forgiven if you try to be forgiven, not just because you do one good thing and then now
Like,
you're forgiven forever.
Like the Jesus and the Big Lebowski has to go door to door. Right?
Yes. Yes.
I killed 1 billion people.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I'm in the neighborhood now. I'm living 2 doors down. So if you need sugar or redemption, I'm like right
there. Yeah.
Somebody should make a fan film just like that.
Yeah. No, because that is one of the, I think, the messages of the original trilogy at the end is, even Darth Vader can stop. Even Darth Vader can essentially be redeemed and do the right thing and all of that kind of jazz. And if you just stop doing that bad thing, and that I think is the important like societal message or whatever that it has to give. Well, I mean, like when you look like modern media today is like, Ben, what's that guy? Not Ben Affleck, the other one, his little buddy, Matt Damon. Yeah, Matt
little buddy.
Matt Damon used to use bad words that were inappropriate, and he says he doesn't do it anymore. Let's cancel him. It's like, but he's literally saying he doesn't do the bad thing he used to do, and that he's come around. And it's like, like it's, if you want to have, because otherwise you end up with the opposite, where I've done bad things, I cannot be forgiven, therefore gotta double down and never change.
Well, Dan Harmon.
No, it's Ben. Who let Ben in?
Shh.
What's going
We're
on?
not talking.
Ben's like, I don't like your opinions. I'm here.
He had to come in. He had to come in.
Yep, gotta come in hot with the opinions. But no, I totally agree with you on your point you just made, Jason, about like Matt Damon or
that's why I brought him on. That's why I brought him.
or people in general, because to me now, nowadays a lot of people are like, hey, I want you to learn and grow and get better and blah 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 and be progressive. But then if someone admits their faults, it's like, well, nah, we don't care, we're just canceling you instead. It's like, wait, but don't you want them to learn?
I have a counterpoint to that though. Dan Harmon outed himself essentially. I mean, he was outed he wasn't named, but there was the suggestion that he had sexually harassed a coworker. He came out and just confessed everything, so much so that the person he assaulted was shocked that he had confessed as much as he had, because she had been talking about it on the side for a while. And people were like, okay, maybe they didn't believe her. And he basically validated everything she said. That is essentially what Matt Damon did, except no one outed him. He outed himself. And we're like, oh, no, you're a bad person now. Now, yes. I don't think it's going to affect him that much, but still.
Yeah,
right.
I agree with what you're saying, though.
That's
oh, Ben, we're losing
sexually,
you.
Physically assaulting somebody is much. Can you hear me?
Well, emotionally.
This conversation doesn't work well when it cuts off halfway through.
Yeah, we only got one part of that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sexual assault, like doesn't work.
no, that doesn't sound good.
Horrible.
Okay, well, assaulting somebody is much more different than, in my opinion, emotionally assaulting somebody.
Well, that is what Dan Harmon did. I mean, he was the showrunner, and he basically, he fell in love with one of his writers, and she did not reciprocate, and so he tried to torpedo her career. And basically, she didn't tell anyone publicly, and then one day she said, "Hey, remember that thing that happened between us?" And he was like, "Yep." And then he went on a podcast and told people everything. And so it is basically like, if what Matt Damon did was he outed himself without anyone really, finding out about it, I feel like we have to have at least a more delicate hand about that and say like, hey, this is a person telling us this is what you shouldn't do. I did it. Please don't do it, because my daughter talked me into never using that word again. And so I'm agreeing with you. The only caution I have here is there's 4 white guys in here. and we're not authorities on any.
Rob is
Adopted.
Rob is an adopted Latino man.
Oh, he's adopted Latino.
Yeah. Well, that's like Dueñas. Yes.
Oh, wow. 3 white guys and another guy.
Point taken though.
I find it like there's always going to be some celebrity who doesn't get it and just starts admitting a bunch of things they shouldn't, and it's going to be like Chunk in the Goonies when he's just telling them one time,
Liam Neeson,
and they started throwing up, and everyone started throwing up.
Yeah.
It was a big
do you remember Liam Neeson's confession while he was in an interview?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, it was one of the worst confessions ever because no one asked him, and it didn't help anyone. That information wasn't good.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes you got to know, like, hey,
sometimes
if you have reformed yourself, if you fixed yourself, sometimes you don't need to share it because it may not be good for anyone, including your career.
Although I was just talking about
like
the complexity of a Star Wars film. Like, I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Just to say, you guys got all.
He's got real.
You know, I'm just. I
say we got
you guys
deep in the conversation.
Yeah, you guys went full elbow.
Yeah. So, really quickly, because Ben is a Bad Batch dude. Ben, really quickly, I think people wanted to hear what your thought about the Bad Batch.
I thought it was great. I actually watched it at 3:00 this morning when it came out. But I thought it was really good as a whole. It was an excellent penultimate episode to lead into the finale next week. And I just really liked where they went with it. I've been saying it all season. I figured Crosshair, I was in the mindset of his chip wasn't working and he was basically just being a dick the whole season. And that's pretty much what he's been. So that's what I was thinking. And, that's pretty much what it turned out to be with him. And then I really did like how the Kiner brothers included the soundtracks from Camino from Attack of the Clones. I really liked that. And then just, as I tweeted out, like, this is like the end of an era, basically, because, the Imperials destroying Camino is basically like symbolically ending the Clone Wars, like closing the chapter on like that entire like series, everything. And, now we're like fully moving on to like the Imperial side of things.
Yeah. How did you feel about the him having already removed the chip a long time ago? Did you feel like that was, I was a little bit, I'm a little conflicted on that part.
I thought it was okay. I mean, it was passable, but the issue with this was, like I was talking about early this morning, is I just don't like the fact that they, we've had so many filler episodes this season, so many wasted bad episodes. Like, you could cut out half this season and the story would still track pretty well. Like, I just think there's so many pointless episodes. And it's like, you could have developed this story with Crosshair a lot more. Like, instead of, like, for example, the Hera arc, the 2-episode Hera arc, instead of doing that, just do a 2-episode Crosshair arc on the Imperial side of things, like showing some of this stuff going on. And then, I thought the most egregious thing throughout the season really was, it was like, I think the 12th episode, the end of it, Crosshair was like, can I start hunting them? And they're like, you're approved or whatever they say. And it's like, wait, I thought, it just seemed like Crosshair should have been hunting them this entire season, but it's like, no, not really. So I think there's been a lot of like mishandlings of the story. Like, they've opened up early on, they opened up so many potential story points. And then, throughout the season, we've had all these filler episodes that have meant nothing. Or it's like, we had stories where it's, Omega captured, Omega saved by the end of the episode. Omega captured, Omega saved. And it's like, I don't know. This season, he's all like, I'm a bad guy. Some reason I'm super evil and talk like Starscream under my breath.
And it's like, you think that because his chip gets turned on, then it turns out he took it out. He's just ridiculous. At the end of the day, he's just a ridiculous person. And
he's just Cobra Commander.
Yeah. It was very that was the part of that where I was like kind of disappointed because I felt like the emotional weight or the emotional conflict was stemming from that. And in the end, he's just stupid. So not really sure what to, or how to roll with that in the end. And there's one more episode, so maybe there's more to it. Cause like it was kind of weird. Like I don't have the chip. I guess when does the chip get taken out? When he gets blown up? But the chip gets taken out, but like we see them turning it up. And so that feels like a cheap red herring to me. Like we're turning it up, maximum evil. It goes up to 11. You know what I mean? They're like doing that, and then it's like, oh, okay, just kidding. Not really. It's not in there anymore. And so yeah, that's what makes me wonder. Like when I rewatch the whole series again, how I'm gonna feel about it. Am I gonna like it or not?
There's no clear antagonist, like if he had in the first episode, at the end of the first episode, which I haven't seen, but I'm just saying at the end of the first episode, his orders were then, can I hunt them down? And you got the thing, you go get them. And then in every episode, he's just got this crew of elite troopers. He's, and he's like, and he's trapping them. Anytime they're in a spot, they're also there constantly pressuring that Jason slowly coming at you thing that no matter what happens, choo choo, I'm going to get you. You're in my crosshairs now, guys. But like if they had done that, then that would be a clear and present threat. Like right now, it's just the idea that, well, anywhere we go is a threat because we're kind of clones. Like that's my biggest gripe kind of with the Phantom Menace, right? Where you're like, Darth Maul sort of, but overall there's like this air of mystery threat, like that.
Well,
that's not compelling.
Here's the problem. Yeah, here's the problem with Crosshair, Rob. So Rob, you haven't seen the series yet, or just hearing it here and there?
I've been watching it the last 3 episodes.
Oh, okay,
and the way I get the feeling for this series, one second. The way I get the feeling for this series is it reminds me of the A-Team, where you got this team that could be brought in to help you, right? They're an elite group in the military, but in the A-Team, the military was always on their ass. They could show up at any, and they would always show up right at the end. We just missed them or some.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, here's the point I was going to make is, so the first episode of this series, I think, all of us that have seen the show, can agree it was pretty great. The premiere was great. And, when all the clones they start turning bad. So Crosshair, for example, I believe it was the second episode. So this is how they established Crosshair. They literally, the Empire sends him out with his elite stormtrooper squad to train them. And what? Yeah.
You were going full Kanye West.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No, it's your internet is lagging or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what's up. That's weird. Okay. Let me check here.
Yeah. Go ahead. I mean, okay. I guess
he's gone.
He's over it.
He's just Ben Affleck. He's gone, baby, gone.
He's gone. He went
canceled himself. Oh my gosh! It came back around. Okay.
No, Richie Kosel, or is it Kosel or Kosel? But he says,
Kosel.
I thought the episode was fantastic. The Crosshair stuff was fantastic.
You're wrong. Oh,
so
sorry.
So it's like, no, it goes to show though, like, I mean, it is working for Richie, at least, you know what I mean? And I liked that character, or I do like the character, but I want to see, I was a little bit like the way it played out was, I'm not sure if I like it or not. Thrawn Talk says, I will haunt everyone as a ghost dressed as Jar Jar.
And I would love you. I would hug you if you did that.
Give Misa a hug. Swinging through comics says, I'm going to be on PC and how I frame the question. When I was a kid, I didn't like 3PO. He felt like
you don't want to read this.
What we called, back in the day. he was received in the days of the original trilogy. Yeah, there back then there were a lot of people that would say things like that. And but at the same time, I kind of think that in a way he was a good example of having diverse friends and friendships. So
like Ben.
Like Ben doesn't have the best internet, but we're still friends.
Yeah. Okay. How's it sound now?
I think it's good. Maybe.
Okay. Well, anyways,
it's
Rob,
like
the point
AT&T.
I was making is so they established Crosshair at the beginning of the season. Like it was probably the second episode, but he was this like pretty much strict badass villain where he literally gunned down a couple of his own squad mates because they wouldn't listen to him, like Imperial squad mates. And, they built him up like he was going to be this intense villain. and then we go multiple episodes with seeing him just in maybe 1 or 2 episodes just for like a couple minutes, like at max. And basically the whole season we haven't even seen Crosshair. And then we have the Bad Batch just basically doing these side missions for this bar owner. And it was like, it's like, what is going on here? You don't even have a villain. The only antagonists for the characters are these enemies of the bar owner, basically. Like, while they're doing these little side missions for this bar owner named Sid, it was just, it was pretty trashy in my opinion for a lot of the episodes.
It's more Ninja Master 1 and 2 than A-Team at this point. Like,
it runs into a pretty big problem that like Star Wars has because of its vast scope and the kinds of things that you can tell and the stories that you can do, where you're like, do you tell the A-Team in space? Or should you only be making the fucking 7 samurai in space?
Well, this is why an anthology series would be amazing for Star Wars, because they could tell any story. You wouldn't have to you wouldn't have to worry about this stuff. You could just make like a Black Mirror type thing, but in Star Wars. And then you could really like actually explore. You could get like a director, like a good, an A director to come in and shoot whatever the hell they want in Star Wars, make a canon. And not have to worry about like, oh, you're going to ruin it because in 2 movies we're not going to do that. It doesn't matter. It's a side story. You do whatever you want. I love to see that.
It has the same problem because Clone Wars was that. And what you would have is Clone Wars was an anthology series. You never followed the same. You went back to Anakin and Obi-Wan a lot, but you'd have Darth Maul returning and a whole story about the Night Sisters set 2 years later than the previous 5 episodes. And then what you would have though is all of a sudden you have this clone like Gregor who's in the void washing dishes as a clone who doesn't remember his past. And people were like, what the fuck is this? And
right, but I don't think that's an anthology series. I mean, what I'm talking about is something that's less like every story isn't connected.
Yeah. So Clone Wars was anthology, but it was anthology within the parameters of that war. And that was what that's what they call it.
Maybe I don't understand what that means.
Hollywood hates anthologies, right. By the way. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Like, I'm friends with some screenwriters, and like when Trick or Treat came out, I was like, why aren't we doing more movies like this? And they explained to me like, because they never know how to market this thing. Yeah. Like if one person likes this thing, then they're gonna hate the 3 other stories. Like the Twilight Zone movie is a great example of that, where people remember 1 or 2 of those bits and you don't remember the other ones. Like you don't remember the one where people legitimately died, right? But you remember the cartoon rabbit or the guy on the plane.
That's happening now with the Marvel What If series that they're doing. Like critics, are already going like, well, this thing was kind of cool, but like, what was this for? And you're like, it's just for whatever, but like, I guess, what people get really critical about things not living up to whatever they wanted it to.
Or even they only get a little bit of it if they like it. And then there's a bunch of other stuff they don't know. So I'm not going to get any more of this. I have to get a bunch of, that's the inherent problem with that format. You know
what? I take it back. You have argued me into disagreeing with myself.
I think Visions and stuff like Visions is good if you do. I haven't seen it yet, but the idea would, if you did something like that in small doses, so that people can then vote on what they like, and that's kind of like your, remember like when Amazon was trying to do that, watch these shows and which one of these.
Yeah, but they stopped doing that for a reason, though.
I know. I'm not saying do that, but if you can see a legitimate if you can see a legitimate growth of interest on a storyline, that'd be one thing. Right. The problem with that is, again, you're admitting to your audience, we don't really know what we want to do. And you never want to be in a position where you tell everyone, hey, we don't know. Hey. So
Warner Brothers just did that with the DCEU. They're just like, well, we don't know. So we're going to make everything.
Everything is all together now.
So you're wondering, can Star Wars be A-Team in space? Yeah. If fucking someone comes in, I'm not saying like Favreau, but if someone on the animation side was like, let's make A-Team with a Bad Batch of clones, you know what I mean? And rather than do it like a sitcom where it kind of reboots itself every episode, right? So it's formulaic, but let's take that to its penultimate, resolution.
There's the word.
And Crosshairs
we're doing it. Penultimate.
Crosshairs is our main bad guy, and the Imperial dude. But it's just not clear. It feels like there's that, but it's all this other stuff too, because they didn't really know which way to go. It feels a little muddied and lost in the mix, you know, like, and it's very difficult to get a clear vision across the table. I gotta tell you, having worked on a few projects where I've seen it, I worked on one project where there is muddied direction on some parts of a game, and on other parts super clear because less people were involved. You know, like, and that's the thing too, like how many people were involved in the total direction of did marketing come in and say, we don't know about A-Team in space, maybe we need more of this other aliens, and you know, maybe we need these other characters, because I don't know, like I wonder, you know.
Yeah, well,
and Rinsler's never gonna find out now, so
yeah, because I like when we do have like some of the stuff about like doing missions for Sid and like what that's like to live in the Star Wars universe. I actually don't mind that, but you do run into this place where you have to have the very basic kind of like story, a day in the life kind of stuff that's fascinating, but then you also want you need the micro and the macro at the same time with Star Wars to like satiate fans. If that falls out of balance at all, then it swings one way or the other. People aren't happy about that side or this side. And I have not ever seen them come close to getting it right for everybody ever. Like it never seems to actually like work out in that way. And that's where you have to have those characters that are just so stellar. Like you do see Mandalorian did get, this is a filler every now and then. You would see that on that show, but at the same time, because people like that universe, Baby Yoda's adorable, that stuff didn't stick as hard. But
if you look at season 2, episode 1, that could have gone badly, and somehow they stuck the landing on that and made it awesome, and one of the best episodes of the series. And so every now and then you can do like a side story that kind of brings in characters, as long as the characters are interesting. And this is the failure, or I shouldn't say failure. This is where I find that some of the animation stuff is weak when they do these day in the life kind of episodes, is the characters aren't that interesting. Yeah. So like I think maybe the fault is in us and being adults and needing that, whereas kids maybe don't.
Well, like enjoy it. In this show right now, the character of Omega is actually very likable. Yep. She's not bad. She has a ton of potential. And as the series was getting going, I was like, this is working really well. This is working better than Ezra and Ahsoka, even better than Ahsoka when she launched. But but when you get to like the last 4 or 5 episodes of the series, all that happens is it becomes formulaically stupid. Oh, we gotta help. Yeah. And all I know is we gotta help. My character and my arc is I gotta help.
I wish they would get the creative group behind DuckTales on some of this stuff, dude. Like, I know I speak volumes. I mean, if you've seen the cartoon, but it does a great job of telling, you know, a family story set across a bunch of wacky stuff, as well as having serious moments. I mean, the character loses their leg in that cartoon, you know, and it's dealt with in a very, you know, not overly dramatic manner, but in a real, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is, you know, so I just think that again, what's the log line for Bad Batch? Like, if you were to explain this cartoon to me, right, having never watched it, you're like, well, I mean, there's some clones and they're different, you know, they don't, And there's another one who's female, and that's different, but that's not a compelling series on the cover of TV Guide, right? Like,
right.
Sorry, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, they put in there though. Here's the thing though, Rob, for you. They put in there, that she's Boba Fett's sister, but then they never go back to that, never touch it again. And it's just like a little Easter egg for fans, like, oh yeah, that's Boba's sister. So it's like, is this
the JJ?
You know,
side.
it's like it's like what's going on here? And then, like, you know how even you were saying, Jason, about, you know, I feel like Omega's trajectory, it was going up and up and up, and then about halfway through the season, it was like, okay, let's just restart this over again and take her back to square one, you know, to her character development from the beginning. And it's like, what happened? Her character was progressing really well, and then it's like, now let's go all the way back to where she was like real, helpless.
I'll tell you what happened. They added
Season
3
2
episodes.
happened.
They added 3 episodes to season 1. That's what happened. They had nothing. That's
well, this
I
is
I have a
what I was
feeling.
talking about with one of my friends. Is I think the episode that came out a couple weeks ago, the really bad episode, the one with the bugs underground, the one that was titled Infested, actually, that one literally felt like you could have placed it anywhere in the entire series. Like, it was totally off track of the story. Like, there was nothing related to the main story whatsoever. Like, you could have moved it to episode 2 or episode 1 even, and it would have been basically no consequences. And it's like, what is going on here? It's like, did you just have an extra episode and go, okay, where do we put it? Let's just drop it in right here.
That happens.
It does.
Mean,
It happened on Clone Wars a
Community.
lot.
If you look up Community episodes, especially season 1, I think there's 3 episodes that were like episode 20, whatever is episode 12, and because they were just like, oh, this doesn't fit into the narrative we're trying to tell here, so let's just move these episodes around, and they stand out. And I think actually Community may have moved a few episodes back into where they were written just because fans noticed it. But yeah, that happens all the time because for whatever reason, either they needed more time on that episode and so they had to move it. And then you just go, well, who gets sacrificed? And it's that bottle episode, or not bottle episode, but that, that standalone episode that doesn't have much to do with anything else.
In Clone Wars, they would have you, if you look at like the production numbers on the episodes, you'll have season 2 stuff moved over into season 1, and season 1 stuff moved into season 2, and those are the bad ones of season 2. And I have a feeling that that whole my hunch is that Boba Fett sister thing came about in the development of season 2. It was moved into a season 1 episode to foreshadow it. And then we are left with this. Oh, here we go. And then no, just kidding. Next year, I got a feeling that that's how that's going to play out. This
is my one like huge criticism of Lucasfilm, modern Lucasfilm, is the way they try to constantly seed things, and they do it after the fact. So they're in a constant state of like retconning. So they always have to tie something back to something else they're doing, and live action dominates. So live action, then to animation, to the written word. So whatever it is, comics or books. And so at any time, they either have to justify something in a book and delay a book or a comic book, or they have to then later on go back and just fix that. And because they're constantly moving things around, like you see, actually, you were talking about the production numbers. I mean, I was too, but it seems like The Mandalorian has sort of found a fix around this. And I think they stole it from Game of Thrones, which is you may shoot something, but we may take that and use it in a different episode and move it into my episode. So you technically have multiple directors on different episodes, on one episode, because they shot this and then you were like, no, we're going to use that in this episode. We're going to move it up to the beginning of this episode and whatever. That helps them to be able to do that. But I think in animation, you have no time to do that. Like, I don't see how. I don't know how the production works on animation, but I figure it takes a lot longer than it does for live action. At least, you only need a few months.
And that'll change, by the way, as they move animation to real time, like with Unreal Engine 5 or, which Stagecraft is essentially UE5. And I just believe all animation will eventually be in real time. Like, there'll be these real time
assets. That'll be amazing.
With lighting and stuff. So this solves all the things we were saying about lighting and development, and what about this, and what about putting too much modeling into something you don't see? Well, these systems can take that and only show you as much as it needs to for rendering, like the way it's screen space renders. So I think that goes away in a very short amount of time, not tomorrow, but like 5-7 years, that a lot of you're going to see the first real-time animated film sooner than later.
Wow. I look forward to that. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for something like Star Wars, where you look at it and you go, this needs to be different, this needs to be better. I mean, that's kind of how they've always made those films. That's how they get that level of detail into it. And when it doesn't work in animation, you could tell. Hey, Ben, Johannes asked, do you think Vader will show up in the finale?
See, that's a really, really tough question right there. Just because, you know, I've been saying all season, to make up for all of these filler episodes, they're gonna just throw something shiny at all of the fans in the last 2 episodes, and we didn't get something big and shiny this episode. So I think there's a chance we'll either get Vader possibly, or maybe Boba Fett comes in to save the day, save his sister for some odd reason or another.
I thought blowing
I feel
up
like
Camino
we're gonna get
was
something
pretty
along those
shiny
lines.
though. You know,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
That's big, but I'm saying like fan servicey, shiny, like Vader, Boba, Darth Maul, whoever. Because even with, I mean, like we even joked around like the complete filler episode a few episodes ago. Like you involve the Pikes, so you're involving the criminal underworld. So maybe Darth Maul for some reason comes into all of this. Like I feel like we could potentially get something like that. But the problem with Vader, you bring him in, and it's basically the whole thing of like Rogue One. Like, how are the Bad Batch going to survive? And we're not going to have Vader like brutally killing the Bad Batch on an animated show.
He brutally
like,
kills the Bad Batch. Like, but it's semi-cartoonily animated.
And then she clones them.
And season 2 is the clones of the clones of the clones.
The Strand Batch, right? That's season 2. It's the Strand Batch.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
They're all a little bit derpy.
That's why they're seeding the Strand crap.
That's the hard part with Vader.
Wrecker's the smart one in season 2. Right?
Yeah.
Somehow
his jaw's falling off like Snoke, though. He's like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think the closest thing we got to Vader really being brutal in the animated stuff, anyways, it was in Rebels. I think it was in the premiere episode of Rebels, actually. It's where Kanan and Ezra and the Ghost Crew are fighting Vader. They basically view Vader, they think he's just like an Imperial agent or whatever, so they don't really know who he is. And there's a part in the episode where Vader's literally pushing Ezra's lightsaber so far back, he had it like this close to his throat, and he was going to just have him like sever his own head until Kanan jumped in to save the day. So like that was the closest we got to anything brutal in animation. But Vader, I don't know. I don't think we'll get him in this episode coming up.
I kind of think with him showing up in Kenobi next year, I kind of think that if they may want to not do much with Vader on screen to give that extra juice. Even I know it's different, but that my guess is that Darth Vader's always possible, but I don't think it'll happen for that reason.
Well, here's a question for you and even the chat. Really, do you think there's a chance that instead of Vader, I feel like maybe a shiny thing for the fans could be, what if they bring back, we already saw Scorch from Republic Commando in the last episode. What if they bring back Delta Squad to like be dispatched, so you have basically the good Bad Batch versus the evil Bad Batch in the final episode?
Yeah,
that feels like something they would like save because they have a season 2.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. It is just yeah, that is true. There is season 2 though next year.
Yeah,
I want to see him wrestle.
That does sound awesome though. But
you ever seen a grown man wrestle?
Oh god, I just watched that. I just rewatched that movie.
Ben, do you like gladiator films? Sorry.
Watch that with a zillennial. I don't know what they call generations here. Watch that movie with a young person, like who understands all the progressive notions of today, and they will not like that part at all. They will be like, "Wait, what is that joke? What is that
Until
joke?"
their kids grow up and then they change. It's
of course.
A cyclical thing. Isn't the guy Zucker directed that one, right?
Yeah.
I think he directed Ghost. Like there's a weird thing where he came in, like Jason. I gotta look that one up, but yeah, I think because it was a weird thing where like the guy from Airplane directed Ghost, like
right.
It's so weird. But,
hey, the guys that made that Spider-Man movie try to make a solo movie.
So yeah, they didn't direct that though. That was directed by someone else. They produced it.
Yeah, I really do think that when they go on to season 2 of this series, it will probably end up getting more focused. We probably won't have as much, because a lot of the exposition of like How do they make their money? Who's the person they primarily work for? That stuff should be taken care of. So if they do that in the second season, then you're like, you guys are just fucking up. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's what it would come down to, and that could happen because they have messed up before.
Yeah, the director of Airplane and Top Secret did Ghost, Jerry Zucker.
Trivia.
Go figure, man. Yeah, go figure.
Man, so the guy who did Airplane came up with that pottery moment.
Yeah.
That's
great.
great.
Man, we don't never put an artist into the corner. You know what I mean?
Don't put baby in the corner. Don't do it.
You never know where they're gonna make. I'll never make anything else ever again, but
I'm making experimental films on TikTok.
I wonder if it's gonna be like Prince, and we're gonna find out that he has like 20 movies in a vault, and when he dies, his kids start releasing that shit.
The Tupac estate raises you.
Yeah.
You know, we got films too.
What are you talking about? He made Star Wars movies. He made his scripts.
Yeah, I have a feeling that is not the case, unfortunately. I would love to see what that guy was doing when he wasn't, you know, when, once again, to go back to the imagined audience, I would like to talk about when his imagined audience isn't there, it's him again. Like what does George Lucas think about? What does he have to like say? But once I knew once none had come out, there was no word of any of them being seen by anybody. Like you would hear somebody like J.J. Abrams or somebody going, I saw one of his films and it's fucking nuts. Like you would have just heard something like that. Yeah. You don't hear that. And then once he and his wife had a child, that's when I knew, no, we're back to the 80s Lucas who isn't doing anything and he's not running a company anymore. So.
And all his friends say, like, when it's brought up, or at least people who know him in real life, they'll be like, no, George is done. Like, they'll be like, oh, is he going to come back to Star Wars? And they're like, no, George is done.
Dude, that's my biggest pet peeve of like, God, I don't expect everyone to know as much frivolous knowledge as I do about Star Wars. But I'm like, George Lucas was never, ever did a movie for hire, really, when you get down to it. He had his pet projects, did him in a studio system for a very short time, then spent like literally 35 years outside of that. There's no fucking way in the world, no matter what, he's going to be like, oh, you guys want me to come and make Rogue One Part 2? I'll write it for you. No, that's
I'm Giorgio Lucas now. That's my electronic version of me, and I just make experimental films with synth waves and alphabets, and that's what I'm doing. You'll buy it.
This is my movie. It's called a grilled cheese sandwich. It's just filming him cooking it.
I don't think he's coming back. No, I don't think he's coming back at all. I mean, really, he has what? I mean, he has what, 4 billion reasons not to, like.
He has more than 4 billion, considering he gets a cut of all that.
One.
He got that. I remember. I don't know how the pandemic changed that, but I remember he got the 4.7 billion, and a lot of that was in stock. And at a certain point, it went up considerably. Yeah. So it was like a big jump for him.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a shame in a way that
still ate Chinese. Hold on, still ate Chinese food at
ate Chinese buffet at the mall with the
Mongolian beef. You don't understand. They can't make this in the valley.
His turkey sandwiches too during the prequels. Oh my god, that's all he ate.
That's all he ate.
That's all he ate was turkey sandwiches with mayo, and I think that was it. No, he stopped using mayo at some point. Why do I know this?
That's weird, man, that you do know that one. He could literally have like PF Chang, like they're making his PF Changs for him. He's like, no, I'm just gonna go to the mall. I like it real. I like where the people go.
Yeah, he showed up in that one documentary where he's just walking into a building.
He's just like walking down.
I call it going to eat in the volume. You know, like to eat in the volume.
I like when
it
he
has
walks
this lighting. It's all over. It's Camino.
His arms are kind of like this.
Yeah,
they're kind of like he's like George Lucas.
And then he's just like, what is happening? Why is there a camera here?
Yeah, so weird. But I mean, that is a pretty good photo. But if your documentary is going to get photobombed by something and it's George Lucas, that's a pretty good one. Because what Dale says, it's kind of a roller coaster. but it makes a bigger story. At the same time, we get the galaxy reduction effect.
Yeah.
Do you guys think galaxy reduction effect is actually a problem? I mean, in reality,
Yeah, a
considering
little
that,
bit.
No.
but considering that the
Go ahead.
complaint about the Phantom Menace was that it got too big and we didn't know our characters. And then you get to the sequels and then it's like it's super small, we don't know the galaxy. So I think it ebb and flows, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know, when you have a giant galaxy that like Solo probably makes the one happenstance in the one coincidental moment in the whole movie where he just happens to run into Kira, right? Like, oh, you're here. Like she didn't manipulate him to be there in some way, or it wasn't like some kind of Ocean's 11 maneuver, right? To get everyone together. He just literally was like, boom. Oh, I was just looking for you.
Yeah.
So that's probably the worst, right? Like, but
well, because my whole thing is like who writes a book or makes a universe, and like the character or a series for that matter, and the characters do not intermingle ever. I mean, I think that's like one of the
No, I think that's a valid point. I'll just say this because I wrote a novel where the entire point was to drive these. It's multi-perspective, and it is to drive these characters together. And we had to figure out a natural way of doing that. And there is a natural way of doing that. The problem is, can you do it in 2 hours and without feeling forced at some point? So yeah, you have to sometimes let that go. Or I think the biggest offensive moment to me is when Chewie is on, in Revenge of the Sith. It's like, this is unnecessary. You didn't need to do this. And it doesn't really add anything to the rest of the story. So when you do that, those are the problems I have. If it drives the story, I have no problem with it because I've written a story. I know how difficult it can be to do it over 4 years. Now imagine doing it in 4 to 6 months. You have to get this script out because we got to start shooting in 6 months after that. We got to start pre-production. Look, and it's going to get messed with along the way. So at some point, somebody's going to come in and go, you know what, we should have Chewie in this moment. And somebody's too tired that day to shoot you down, and Chewie ends up in the movie. Right. I think that those things just bother me more since they don't need to be there. But like Darth Maul at the end of Solo, that made sense. Is it fan servicey? Not really. That made sense. We had already set it up in canon. So those types of things, I think that makes sense. And also, how many new characters can you introduce and make the audience care if you're only going to bring them in for a couple of seconds? You have to do that in those situations. But Yoda was already in that scene in Revenge of the Sith. You didn't need Chewie also, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like the way to think about what both of you guys said though is that like the Chewie thing, I both like as a fan and then agree with your point wholeheartedly. And on the other side, you have like the Kira thing, like, and where I think this connects to Rob's point about Kira is like they're both young and upcomers, if you will, in the underworld. So that chance encounter of bumping into each other becomes at least rationally more possible than Chewbacca happens to have been on Kashyyyk and said, "Hey Yoda, Yoda, I got ET spaceship for you."
Yeah,
where's the Wookiee?
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Jason.
What were you gonna say, Ra? I'm sorry, Ben.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to this whole like galaxy reduction thing, also we've gotten into a space of, is, like you said, is this really a thing? Because Star Wars is such like a galactic, like all the stories are usually galaxy wide implications, whatever. Like this story with Bad Batch, for example. Like it's a galaxy wide implication because the clones are getting eliminated and all of that sort of thing. Like it's literally galaxy wide. So we have characters like Gregor, for example, stopping by or getting captured or whatever. But it makes sense for the story just because he's a clone commando who got captured, et cetera, et cetera. Like and just because he made a cameo in Clone Wars doesn't mean, and in Rebels doesn't mean he is a it's reducing the story or reducing the galaxy anymore. Like that makes sense. And just purely as fans, like we're sitting here talking on a Star Wars podcast. We're in the minority of like fans, I would say. So like for the wide scoping audience, what would be more appealing to a fan? Having a cameo from a character like Gregor or any other known commodity, or just some no-name person with, John Smith or whatever, like what that's the hard balance I find when it comes to Star Wars is like, am I looking at this as like a hardcore fan who analyzes every little iota of Star Wars? Or am I looking at it as a fan from trying to look at it from a general audience perspective? Because that's such a fine line to balance. Like, take the sequels example. Such a hot button topic in the Star Wars community and all this stuff. But a lot of the people I know, they like them for what they are. Like, they're just casual fans. They've seen them a couple times. They, when they came out, etc. Like, they had fun with 7, 8, 9, thought they were fun movies and all that. And, went about their daily lives and, thought they were fine
normal
movies.
lives.
The merch didn't sell, Ben.
Yeah, no. I think you kind of bring up a good, an interesting idea in that when you get down to it, like when you have cameos and you have that galaxy reduction kind of thing, I think there's like two different functions. I think there's the first function is I recognize this because I have a Chewbacca shirt. Therefore, this works for me. Love this, right? It's a bit merch driven, or it's recognizability. Then you have the other side that's like Gregor, where it's like you have your weirdo fan like me who's like, oh, you do know that Gregor's from the Clone Wars void, right? And then but what you end up doing though is that kind of thing might drive somebody to go deeper into Star Wars and then get their meat hooks even deeper in on them. So I think there's like different functions of those cameos.
And my girlfriend, by the way, got into the Clone Wars animation show because of the Mandalorian season 2. So she's like, wait, there's more to these side stories. And so that's where that kind of thing functions really well. And a screenwriter friend of mine calls what we were talking about with Chewie, he calls it shortcutting to the familiar. And every now and then you just gotta, like in this scene, you want the audience to go, oh, I know where I am right now, especially if you're cutting away from something the audience wants to cut back to. If you just cut back to like because that Yoda scene with Chewie is kind of boring in itself, especially what you've
slow.
just cut from.
Yeah.
So you put Chewbacca in there and all of a sudden the audience go, hey, that's Chewbacca. Wow, that scene meant something to me because I got to see something familiar. So you can definitely utilize that to tell a story in a way that, keeps the audience engaged. I actually think Mandalorian season 2 does that really well. And I was a huge critic of season 1. I think season 2 does this so well in that when they introduce something familiar, they pay it off. They don't just go, here's something interesting. Here's something cute. Oh, are they fighting again?
Well, it's familiar. We know this.
Yep.
Look at my bod.
That's a good point.
Look at my beard. Look at my bod. Look at my beard.
It just occurred to me what the go on, Ben.
I'm gonna say, I mean, I agree. Like, Mando season 2 did such a good job of introducing like Bo-Katan and Ahsoka and those characters as new characters for the general audience members, like you said, your girlfriend or whoever, and then that they introduced them well enough. They served their purpose for their episodes they were in. But if people dive into it just a little bit more, then they can go, oh, there's this whole show with these characters. So, they did it so well, like so seamlessly for Mando season 2, like, hats off to them for the way they executed it.
I think the reduction in the universe thing it's just a fan, like, oh, everyone can write a story nonsense, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. The Marvel comics and then the movies and then the shows have had this argument for years. If you read X-Men, you're like, or Spider-Man, why didn't X-Men come in when this guy shows up? Or why doesn't Doctor Strange come in and save everyone? And then now in the movies, why doesn't Doctor Strange come in the show, WandaVision, and just save everybody? Well, how much of a FU would that be to the people following the show that some random dude who wasn't in the show the whole time comes in and saves them? Well, that would make sense for the universe. Bro, it's a universe in which people fly. Let's stop talking about what makes sense. You got to do what's best for the story, and if that character comes in and if they don't, well, they were busy. Look, at that particular point in time, Doctor Strange was at the mall eating Chinese food with George Lucas. You know?
Yeah.
He was
Well,
like,
the
we got the
Captain
loop, we can eat all
Marvel.
day.
The Captain Marvel problem in the final Avengers movies is you have to keep her out of it, right? Now, you could say, well, they hadn't thought of bringing her back in, but I think they actually had. So I think we knew that Captain Marvel was going to come in, or at least they did. But you can't have her. She's too powerful anyway, and there's all these things. You somehow got to nerf a character. This happens all the time, and you actually see it in Mando season 2, where then they bring those characters back together. This is why I praise season 2 so much, because they not only introduce them, but then bring everyone, mostly everyone, back together. And there is another payoff. And also, it's for business reasons, right? You can drive people now to Clone Wars, and Clone Wars is already spinning off. And I'm sure everything else is going to get a spin-off down the road anyway. So Kenobi is a spin-off of the prequel trilogy, but it's also a spin-off of Clone Wars. Now people are going to want to go back and watch those. That's why they're never going to delete the sequel trilogy. They're never going to, stop making prequel trilogy stuff, because they can constantly bring in new fans forever. And those fans won't be as critical as the ones who watched it in real time.
Yeah. I agree with you. And just to add one more thing to that whole Chewbacca business, because you got my mind on the Chewbacca thing now. It occurred to me what the function of that cameo is. It's that you have about a 20-minute stretch of super fucking downer business. Yeah. Nothing. There's no feel good moments. Nothing. So they're like, you know what? Let's in there. Let's put Chewbacca. Everybody's gonna recognize him. It'll make it feel like, there's he's coming. He's gonna be in the next one. And it's like, you know what I mean? And it's sort of like everything's going to be okay. And I think it was them not wanting to literally crush fans too hard in that one.
But
and in a way,
Rogue One's hope.
He's your Wookiee hug in the middle of that sadness, if you will.
Yeah.
The thing,
or like I said, in Rogue One, they have her say hope. That's the last line in Rogue One, because you just saw the most violent scene in Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh. And even R2 and 3PO's little moment in there may also serve a similar function. And their cameo comes in when everything is like getting really, really tense all of a sudden. Or they're like, I don't know. In a way, I feel like if you're making your Star Wars movie tense, lean into it, because more than not, the problem is that doesn't happen. But it's at least it's good thing. Oh, Santa's. Oh, I almost forgot Rick. Rick said a long time ago, Vader did get a remodel for the end of the Clone Wars, so maybe he'll show up. So
that is true.
It's possible.
That is really true, because we haven't had him yet, and he was remodeled for that final like epilogue shot they had.
Yeah. I think that we will see that used again. I mean, they don't really tend to make things for one little thing, so maybe it's coming, but it might be in the next. Might be in season 2, I think, when we get more of how the Stormtrooper program has progressed and what that means and stuff like that. But Star Wars Santa says, I need that on a shirt. This is the sleigh. Rob needs to hook me up with some merch, laugh out loud. And he doesn't mean like draw him something. He just means like take him to like Target and like, buy him a Baby Yoda shirt. Something like that. Del Erdman says, but I love the bigger story. What else was going to go on the galaxy is something I've wondered. And then he says, did I already finish that cup of coffee? And then he says, make Rogue 2 happen.
Rogue 2.
I think we are getting that in that Cassian
Rogue Part
show.
2.
It's Rogue Part 0, isn't it? It's Rogue 0, not
Zero.
Rogue 1. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the Cassian show is going to be interesting to see if how well Disney's commitment to canon is, because I'm pretty sure, based on like the comics and everything, I think it's in the comics or one of the novels, but Cassian meets who's the droid in Rogue One?
K2SO. Alan Tudyk.
Yeah.
Tudyk.
Yeah, Alan Tudyk. I knew the actor's name. Yeah, K2SO. Cassian meets K2SO like almost like right before the events of Rogue One. And this Cassian show is a to Rogue One, so it just begs to the question always comes up: how committed are they to canon? Because we've seen inconsistencies with canon so far, from the books to the comics to the what we get on screen. So now it's just like, what is canon?
I think they kind of have an easy way around that if they wanted it, and that's that he hacks K2, and it's not really working out, and he's kind of working on the hack, and he's loading it in, and then it kind of falls off, the thing returns,
Oh, yeah,
and then by
that's
the
true.
there's I think there's story ways
that is,
of letting those things coexist at the same time. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
This is the kind of stuff that really bothers me about the prequels. Like, there were ways that George could have made it so that, like, what Leia says in Return of the Jedi makes a little bit more sense. It doesn't have to make a lot more sense. Just don't kill Padme. And, it's like things like that. Those are the things that annoy me more than anything.
There's nothing worse than losing your mother, Geek. You don't understand this. It's the worst thing that can possibly happen is losing your mother. That's we bookended it. Episode 1 and episode 3. That's how it works. That's the point of Star Wars, is losing your mother. Have you ever lost your mom,
it's about
George?
your father?
No, I've never lost my mother, but it's the worst.
My mom CGI ILM remade her, and I am happy.
Giorgio has many mothers, ones and zeros.
Yeah. I kind of think that when that Cassian series comes out, I think they're just gonna like sidestep it and find a way around it. I also get the impression that that he's not that there's K2 droids all up in it, because we've seen it. But I
want that video.
Right,
K2 droids
it's
all up in it. Yeah. but that also, I mean, we did see K2 next to other K2s, so my analysis on this probably is shit. But when you get down to it, like, you don't really necessarily want him next to more of the same, because that gets very confusing a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I
want to paraphrase a friend of mine who none of you know, but is probably going to be watching this podcast eventually.
Huh.
What is canon? Whatever the masses remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they were like, wait a minute, wasn't the many Bothans like? And that's what JJ was doing with The Force Awakens. He was like, hey, we don't need to make it exact. We just need to make it the way we kind of remember it was.
Yeah.
And that is canon to Lucasfilm. They are like, hey.
The X-Men films say, hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. What is canon? Whatever is most popular.
Well, there's that moment in the Attack of the Clones featurette from the DVD with Rob Coleman talking about designing Yoda, and about how there's certain ways that they have to make Yoda when they're doing their best at the time, obviously, but they're like, we need to make him how people remember him, how they think they remember him. And
here's the
true.
Funny thing with
it's true, because like when I saw the first time I saw The Last Jedi with a puppet Yoda, I actually was like, this doesn't look right. This looks bad to me. And now it looks fine. It looks normal.
Yeah. Same.
Well, here's the funny thing with canon. We're talking about, like you said, canon's what people remember. But it's ironic you say that, because as you say that, here in September, well, and actually over the past few months, this summer, Star Wars has been releasing their Legends editions of books. So they're basically, making more money, but they're re-releasing all the old popular Legends books. So like the Heir to the Empire trilogy, they released the first book for that, and so on and so on. So, of course, it comes down to the whole thing of like, what's canon? Like, so, we go from, we're pushing our canon we're making, but then we're also re-releasing all the old books that you guys love.
Yeah, because they can make
that
money.
that means they successfully signed a royalties deal with the Dark Horse.
So they don't have
people.
to pay somebody too much.
I still believe the whole reason why they were like, everything's going to be not canon before, and then this is going to be the new canon, was so that they could spend their time working out all the rights issues.
Well, when you think about it, dude, like when they go and they put out the Heir to the Empire book, somebody's going to go buy it who's never read it. They're going to read it, fall in love with it, realize this doesn't really fit into the movies. So they'll be like, well, this doesn't fit in with episode 7. So they're already going to have a little bit of cognitive dissonance, but they're like, I like it. And then, Thrawn is coming into a TV show. Oh, I want to see that now. And
Wait
so
till they get to Dark Empire.
Yep.
right, yeah.
Oh my god.
But
Palpatine's back again.
No, but you bring up a good point though. Was that was my childhood cognitive dissonance of literally buying Dark Empire and Heir to the Empire like in the same 2-year span of time or something, and being like, do these things sit together? I don't think these make sense together. Maybe and trying to figure it out, but being like, you know what, at the end of the day, I like Star Wars, and
You never
I like
read The
these
Courtship
things.
of Princess Leia.
Oh, God.
I did.
Look,
I did.
it had the Struzan cover, so I'll read it. Oh my god.
Yeah,
You know?
we had. I've been in the canon wars since what 2000 when it first started on the Force.net.
Right.
And we basically, so many of us got banned, like hundreds of us got banned because we would argue what was canon, what wasn't. And I'm so glad now at 49, I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like,
Yep.
That's why I just don't think they should bother trying. Like the films have their own canon. The comics have their canon that's loosey goosey. Let it be creative and let the games do whatever they want to do. Because when you start to try and like tie it all together, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work, and you end up with these mediocre projects that just don't quite go the distance that project could go.
Yeah.
You know, like Starkiller is a fun video game. I don't want Starkiller canon where you Jedi can just pull Star Destroyers down from space, you know, like that.
But Mike
would be a
Zero's
bad
thumbnails are fucking bitching. Can we agree on that? Like, those thumbnails we make are fucking rad.
But like you also get like Fallen Order, which is you have to have this character. And I love the idea. I think even Rob brought it up the other day of why can't I have a game where I just create my own and you do what other games have done, which is your character has no dialogue or, doesn't speak, like is only spoken to. That way you don't have to do, 1,000 actors doing different voices, or you don't have to have at least 4 actors doing different voices. And you just create your own character and then you go through the journey. That's the best part of games like that for me, is that like I get to decide everything, not just a lightsaber color.
Yeah.
That's the problem with a lot of the canon stuff though, is that they like with the video games, for example, like to me that was the biggest mistake Lucasfilms made under this Disney purchase, is like making the video games canon, because it bootstraps you. You have to stick to the story group, you have to stick to the overall whatever, versus like like you said, Rob, back when Force The Force Unleashed came out, they just went crazy with that game. And, now you're bootstrapped with all these games just because it's like, you got to stick to canon. You got to make sure it sticks. Like, even
how does Battle for Naboo work into canon? How does Battle for Naboo work into canon? It has a flying Buick. Like, if I type in the code, I get the flying Buick. That's canon now. I mean,
but one of the things I will say though is like Battlefront 2, right? Like there's battles in there.
Operation Thunder.
Those things happen, but like, for the most part, like, and then you have like your story there. The stuff ties in okay, and then like the other like multiplayer stuff, like you could say like that battle happened, but everything else, how can you quantify like that time you died there? It's irrelevant. So I kind of feel like for the most part that stuff feels so aside that it's canon, you suckers, because it's irrelevant.
Although I think the Battlefront 2 stuff, like the story stuff, is really interesting. And even in what's the one, the space fighter game that just came out, and I've been playing it, and I already forgot what it's called.
Star Wars Squadrons.
Squadrons.
Even no one can remember that name, by the way, Geek. I'm not cutting you off, but every time Jason brings it up every other episode, and he can't remember the name. Which one is it?
Because we all played like Rogue whatever, or because I'm so old that I played like my first PC game when I bought a PC, because I had owned Apple and stuff before, was 1991, and then I bought X-Wing, and then I bought TIE Fighter, and Wing Commander around 92, 3, I forget when that came out. And so those
Camel game.
Yeah, so those games were hard, and Star Wars Squadron is the first Star Wars game I played where I want to break things. I haven't broken a controller since I was like in my 30s, and I almost broke my controller the other day because it's so frustrating, and I love that. I love really stupid, frustrating games that are needlessly fucking making me annoyed. But for some reason, it's such a simple name that you just like Fallen Order. That just sounds like a game that I want to play. Star Wars Squadrons. What?
Yeah.
Rogue Squadron may not be a great name for a movie, but I think it works better than for a video game where I'm just like, what does that even mean? I'm not really in a squadron. I'm just individually fighting like
You know what
way
it's
too
all
many
about.
enemies.
You know what it's all
Speaking of
about.
video games,
I just want
Hunters
the
got delayed.
DAC
Speaking of
game.
video games, guys,
What happened?
did you see that?
Wait, you're breaking up. I didn't hear you.
I was going to say, speaking of all this video game talk. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, go on.
I said, speaking of video game talk, I forgot to mention when I came in, I just saw, I was reading right before I hopped on here, the Hunters game got delayed to Q4 of 2022. So it'll be, late 22 sometime whenever that game comes out. And, it's presumably it's going to be probably just some type of bounty hunter game since it's literally titled Hunters. But that got delayed because EA's focus is on Fallen Order is what got reported.
Okay. Well, I like we say, I'd rather have a late game than a bad game.
Yeah. Anytime. Delay it forever. And delay all the movies too. Like, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Delay everything.
Hey, listen, if Rise of Skywalker had been delayed 6 months, I think you get a superior movie. I think you get an actual ending.
Yeah,
it would have come out right in the beginning of the pandy.
You could have done May. Oh yeah, well,
I wasn't doing anything.
Then I could have gotten COVID twice watching the Star Wars movie.
No,
wait a minute. I wouldn't have gotten COVID because I wouldn't have been sitting in a theater in February watching Rise of Skywalker for the 20th time, and it was right next to a lady who was coughing the whole time.
20th time.
No, I say they could have just released it all in drive-ins, and we could have had a really weird Star Wars experience, and that would have been fun.
You know what?
Been like the 50s.
It could have. It could have brought people back together, and then made it worse.
We could play my experimental films before too. I got a few.
I got a few in the vault. I can't do George Lucas. Never mind. What am I even trying?
Yeah.
Dell says, exactly. There's more. There's always more. We don't know when we will watch the movies and popular stuff. I love Force Collector. It's about a kid that finds he has the Force ability and isn't connected to the Skywalker saga.
Wait a minute. Yeah. He got his hands on Rian Johnson's script?
Yeah, he did.
For that other movie?
Oh, yeah. If you want to know anything about Rian Johnson stuff, just ask Dale. He knows everything. Francisco says, what kind of Star Wars games would you guys like to see?
Star Wars Galaxies, man. Star Wars Galaxies Reborn. That was a game so ahead of its time. It was insane. It was the griefiest MMO I've ever played. Like, you could spend months working on something and have it destroyed in a day. Not even a day, in one fight. It was an insane game. I loved it. I want Star Wars Galaxies 2.
I built my town at 00 on the coordinates, the very center of Naboo, and
everyone did that.
I was so rich. I was like, I loved it. I love MMOs. I don't like them. I don't really like the modern state of MMOs.
Yeah.
And no one else is gonna like what I like either. Like I used to love EverQuest. I like when a game was hard.
I played EverQuest.
Yeah, like when you actually did something, it was like you
I was in a raiding guild in EverQuest, by the way.
Yeah.
I was in a major raiding guild. So yeah. But Star Wars Galaxies, if you played as a bounty hunter, the way you hunted Jedi, because there were so few of them, they were like on a server, there might be 3 Jedi. The way you hunted them, I've never played an MMO where you could spend weeks finding your target. It was such a slow burn of a game. It was like the Wire of MMOs.
Or doing nothing. Like, I mean, it depends on how you look at the game.
Sometimes you did nothing. You sat around waiting for your target.
Pixel hunting. Like,
well, no. So what you did was you found clues and you found where they lived, and then they would come home. And so you would sit outside setting up traps for them to come home. You might wait for weeks.
This is why you saw Rise of Skywalker 20 times.
Like, actually, I saw it 20 times because because I had AMC A list, so I could see it for free.
Smart.
Yeah. So
it's what you're both getting at is exactly the reason that I would love a new Star Wars MMO. The Old Republic is okay. I love stuff about it. I liked a lot stuff about it that was kind of forgettable to me. At the same time, I don't think you can do I don't know if we'll ever get a Star Wars MMO because it requires like it'd have to be made for the actual for it to be good for the actual people who play MMOs and not just Star Wars people. And that was where Galaxies worked, was that it was so sandboxy at the same time that the people who embraced the Star Wars sandboxiness loved it and had a great time. And then the other people who were like, I want to go after like EverQuest Ghoulbane sword or something like that, that doesn't exist there. And you're just like, what the fuck am I doing here? So like that's where like I would love that too, but I don't think so. I don't think it'll unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get a good one.
Game coming in a couple years, but
yeah,
again, it's just how,
if it happens.
they say open world, but how open world will it actually be?
Look at the Avatar game. If you want a good example of what they're shooting for, the same team, same engine.
I was gonna say it's the same team. That's why I'm thinking that open world game probably won't come out until probably 23, because I'm assuming it'll be after the Avatar game.
Yeah, it will be after the Avatar game, and I don't know that much about the Avatar game. I haven't like looked into it, but I do know that Red Dead Redemption is probably my favorite like game series or modern game series.
Right,
not a big Western guy, but I love that game so much. And if they could get that kind of like level of detail and fun into that, or even anywhere close to it, I'll be jazzed.
Yeah, I'm actually playing Red Dead Redemption 2 right now, and I'm pretty much toward the end. And it's one of those games where you're like, man, you could do so much if you set this like on a Star Wars planet. The only thing is like to leave the planet would change things, but even Red Dead Redemption 2 leaves the island. So it's you could do it and still make it a compelling story. You know, they do a lot of like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing in that game. Maybe that would annoy me if I was playing it in Star Wars. But outside of that, like it's such good storytelling, good character building, and you have an open world. You can do pretty much whatever you want. You can spend 100 hours not playing the quest mission. I'd love to have that in Star Wars. That is essentially what Star Wars Galaxies was. You know, people dancing. Like you could be a dancer. That was your profession. You just danced in a club. That's all you did.
My profession was image designer.
Yeah, image designer.
I was good at it too because I learned all of the commands, so I knew how to get like the hair colors that weren't in the game, like officially and stuff.
He was a hairdresser.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was a Star Wars hairdresser, which is ironic.
John Peters was proud.
Yeah, hey, and he got to go out with Kim Basinger and then break up with her, right? That was the story?
Yeah.
And not put her in Batman.
That's why she's not in Batman Returns.
What an idiot. What an idiot. You had Kim Basinger and then you lost her and then you didn't put her in Batman too. You're dumb. You ruined Batman. Anyways. But yeah. Do you play all of the Star Wars games, Rob? For the most part, or do you just kind of like it looks good, you pick it up?
Not anymore. So like the VR stuff on Squadrons, I was interested in. I think it could be more arcadey. I don't like I don't like routing shields. Like I didn't like it in X-Wing TIE Fighter. I don't like it in Star Wars. I get it. I just don't care. I like Fallen Order. I just don't like the lead dude. You know, I'm not that actor for whatever reason.
That guy?
Yeah, I put him in my Dennis Quaid category. He's like right over there.
He's in that fake Batman show.
That's what I didn't like.
That's one of my favorite shows.
Is it?
I've never seen it.
Yep.
No, I actually agree with you about him. I don't like his face.
Good.
It's so mean to say. I don't think I look much better. I just don't want to stare at this.
No, I can say that because I'm so handsome.
That's true.
That's fair. That's fair. That's why you're
really
on today.
wanted Ragtag. And
well, Rob was the handsome one on the podcast. Then I came in,
and then
so Rob is number 2 now. Well, you weren't here. No, you weren't here yet.
I'm a big number 2. That's how I look at it.
Sorry,
I agree.
I apologize for all of that.
What? Poop emoji. Everyone loves a poop emoji. What are you talking about?
Rick Jones says Masters of Terrascasi too. And
good point.
That
was what my dream project was. Instead of that, was actually just go and make that live action Mortal Kombat like Star Wars game that they were originally going to make. So the Mortal Kombat guys, before they were making Mortal Kombat, were going to make a Star Wars game that digitized everyone.
Yeah.
And it'd be fun just to see them put money into like a retro looking, 2D digitized fighter that had all the characters from the prequels, the sequels, the original trilogy, and just over the top fun combos, something that would play really well on Twitch. You could just watch people do. Like if you're using like Vader, you can like summon the Death Star and then it comes down and shoots you and blows you up, or Ewoks will jump out on the Ewok level and attack as combos. Just something super over the top, not realistic.
Would you hate it if they did it and it was a specific, like it had a story to it, let's just say?
Yes.
And it was, well, no, because there are elements of like where like blind dude from Donnie Yen's character from Rogue One, like
that guy but their cutscene.
Sure.
So if you played a first person like Street Fighter, each character had their own little mini kind of story-ish. So it would just be that character's arc from the story, like where he's just like, I'm trying to find the way of the Force, and at the end he walks off, or Rey is like, I'm trying to find so on. It's just their arc played through this series of crazy adventures. So it's there.
Because I don't need Lando in a fighting game. I mean, I know people would be like, "Where's Lando?" or whatever, but like I don't really need that. Like the characters aren't always conducive to the fighting game model. But now today, there's so many like. General Grievous is fucking Goro, dude. Let's do it.
But Lando can summon Lobot, and Lobot can come out with his dudes and the Ugnaughts and fuck you up. Like
that's your finishing move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could punch you, he can blast you through the floor, and then you go into the little area where Luke and Vader fight, or the carbonite chamber, right? So just don't overthink it.
We also need a new Star Wars dancing game. Like who didn't I didn't play that. That although it was cute. I've watched people play it on YouTube and I'm just like, that's kind of cute. Like if I'm not invested in this, like in the behind the scenes of that. Yeah, there it is.
So my pitch is Star Wars Twi'lek. You are a Twi'lek person.
I like this.
And you have the collar around you, and you better learn how to dance in this dancing game.
Oh my god!
If you don't, you get thrown into the pit.
Okay.
Jabba's palace.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. How we gotta do this?
That's great.
Lucas loves it. Things
that Disney's never gonna let
Fabuloso.
Fabuloso.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Terrible.
We need to get you a stamp that says Furioso. Whenever the Geek Furious approves, it's all Furioso.
Oh, Furioso! But I'm Geek Radio now.
We're Geek Radio right now
because we're doing radio, guys.
Radio. We are on a radio broadcast. Oh,
by the way, if you listen to this podcast while it's playing on your phone, technically that's a radio transmission. We are on the radio. By the way, I have a master's degree in telecommunications.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Dell says Manny Bothan's mother was affiliated with the original Rebels. We haven't heard of her yet though. So
that's what they were saying. They weren't saying many Bothans or Bothans. It was named Manny.
Francisco.
He's related to Manny Faces.
How's it going, Francisco? Manny Faces was the best toy. I love Pod Racer game even before even if it's
that's a great one
my
too.
time.
Yeah.
Almost all of them were good. I would mind if they put out the arcade version somehow. I don't know if they ever was it Sega?
They did the first one, the Vectrex graphics one, but there was a Return of the Jedi one that I loved. And it was like a top down, like a, what do they call it? Like an angle. Yeah, it was a speeder bike and all that. And the Falcon and not trench run. Yeah, the
Death Star 2 kind of Death Star 2. Yeah.
Yeah. And that had like I enjoyed that game a lot, and it was very different and stuff like that. But I've never seen that one. I'm sure they released it at some point, maybe like on the
Star
Neo
Wars,
Geo.
The problem is Sega owns that. There's a licensing issue with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to go to Knott's Berry Farm.
With Sega.
They had that at Knott's Berry Farm in the 90s. It was like the only place I ever saw it.
Yeah. I had actual arcades back in the 80s, back in the olden times.
Yeah, when I was younger, actually, there was a pod racing game when we would go to Virginia Beach when we were, I don't know, it was early 2000s, like 2002, 3 range or so. It was like a local arcade there, and they had a full blown like pod racing game setup where, you know, you had the hand grips and everything. You sat in the pod racing chair and all that
That's
stuff.
what
and
I
it
was talking about. Yeah,
it's
the
in
one
that
behind
picture
Rob.
right there, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
behind
that's
Rob
the
right now.
Player setup.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I love that one. That one was fun.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Pod
yeah.
Racer game was so much fun. Me and my brother is 16 years younger than me. So I, like introduced him to everything, Star Wars and video games. And we played the living shit out of that Pod Racer game. Like we never turned the system off. So it was just constantly on until it died one day.
Mhm.
And yeah, that game, I loved it so much, man. And I tried playing it recently when they re-released it as HD and it was horrible. Like I never go back. Never go back. Don't go back with your ex, and don't go back with the game you loved once. Because I'm just like, oh, it was it always this bad? Like, did it always control this badly? Probably did. I just got used to it because my reflexes were better in my 20s.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was with me a while back. I went and played the old Mario 64 game, and that game's still frustrating to play. Like, I was like, oh, let me turn on the old 64 and just give it a try. And I was playing, I was like, man, this is still frustrating as hell.
Yeah. Some of those old games like Donkey Kong Country, oh my God, like I love that game. It's got the best soundtrack of any cartridge game, or at least at the time. Game was so frustrating.
Yep. All right, guys, we are going to end it here because we're at 2:15 right now.
Why? We just got here.
I know, right? My kids want to go swimming, but we will have everybody back on. We'll let you guys duke it out about some Star Wars stuff. And I will be on tomorrow night doing the UFO show for a bit. Anybody wants to come? Your eyes are
It's
all
terrestrial. It's all terrestrial. Okay. Sorry.
No, yeah. We'll definitely.
One of these days, I'll do that one because I'm going to come in with hardcore skepticism.
No, that's why I want you. That's why I want you to do it because.
No, I want to. I just can't do it tomorrow. But I definitely want to because I come from I was the hardcore UFO believer.
Yeah,
and like big time. So yeah, I love to do it. One of these days, we'll do it
for sure. Yeah, and so tomorrow night, probably around 8:00, I think, is when we'll do it. And so if you guys aren't doing anything tomorrow, you guys want to talk about spaceships, come on. It's all about spaceships. That's the amazing thing about Star Wars is the spaceships are like the key to everything.
It's not about spaceships.